Hi folks, welcome to week 10. It is our new unit, our officially new unit. It is the informational report. This is what we've been working toward, so I hope this isn't a big surprise to you. We are going to be using the research you've been gathering ever since you started that concept map, and we're going to be putting it together in an academic researched paper where you inform an audience about a topic that is of mutual interest. It interests you and it interests your readers. Um, you are learning about MLA style. You're learning about using academic conventions like signal phrases and works cited citations. All of those things are going to serve you very well as we move into this unit. And we're going to be crafting and drafting our paragraphs, our thesis statements, and all the good stuff that goes into writing a researched report. So let's get started. So here is our module overview. You're going to be continuing to develop your research questions, and you're going to be thinking about how you are answering questions that interest your readers. The who, what, when, where, why, and how of an essay. Those are the things we're going to be talking about as we're informing our readers this week. We're not here to persuade. We're not here to argue. We are not here to sell them anything. We're not here to call them to action. We are here only to inform, which is important. And so we're developing those research questions so that we can find those answers to those questions. Remember, we talked about the primary question being the big kahuna, the big question you're trying to answer in your essay, but you may have sub-questions for which you will find research to answer those questions. I said that poorly, but I think you know what I mean. This week we're going to read about different types of reports. You may be called upon to write different types of reports for your future careers. You're going to identify key components of a research report in academic writing, and you're going to complete your second they say, I say assignment using a source from the library databases. The one that you just completed should have been for one of your popular sources, one that you found through a regular Google search or even a YouTube video. It could be a TED Talk. All of those are available to anyone, anywhere, and that's part of what makes them popular, is that they're not limited to a scholarly database. This time we're using sources that we're drawing from our actual library search. Yes, Google Scholar is a good place to start to get ideas, and you can find resources there, but you can't find everything there. And sometimes you'll find a hit that takes you to an article you can't access because it's behind a paywall. But heads up, it's probably in the databases, and you don't have to pay a cent. It's already there. So part of what we're learning in this unit is how to use library databases. It's a skill you're going to need, not just in this class, but in future classes. So we want to get those skills underway this term, as you know. So let's roll forward. This week, you have a fair amount of reading, and I want you to spend energy on this. This is foundational stuff that's going to help you gain confidence and knowledge and skills all of which are going to make life a whole lot easier for you. In addition, we're going to do a scavenger hunt where you're going to read a student essay and you're going to look for elements of a report. Well, if you don't know what those elements are, it's going to be hard to find them. So please read about reports and that good stuff. You're going to have a quiz on subject-verb agreement, and you're going to have a they say, I say assignment, the second one using a scholarly source. That takes some energy. It's worth more money, obviously. By that I mean points. And so I have made your exploratory journal extra credit this week if you so desire. It is you exploring your research plan, your big questions, and so on. It's worth your time to do, but I also know that your time is limited and that you've got a lot going on. So I've made it extra credit. If you want to do it, I think it will serve you well. If you don't, that's okay. Spend your energy on your reading, I mean that, and on the scavenger hunt and the they say, I say. Let's move on. So your readings. There's a chapter on reports, and it gives you an overview of the types of reports that are out there in the world, in addition to the informational report that you're going to be writing for this class. This particular chapter is really useful to you. It includes information about the exploratory essay, which is not what we're doing in this class. Some classes use that instead of the they say, I say. But it does include information about the informational research report, and that's what you are doing. So you can skip the first little bit about this exploratory essay and just dive into the informational report. I think you're going to find that's extremely helpful. Very important, the thesis development and paragraph development chapters. This handout is part of what's in here, but the big deal is we need to know what our thesis is. And a thesis is a statement. It's not a question, it's a statement, but it answers the big question. It's the organizing idea behind the entire essay, and everything in the essay relates to it. So it's kind of a magical statement. It does so much. And part of what we're going to be doing this week is learning how to create a thesis statement that will hold your whole essay together, and it will also help you organize your essay. If you craft your thesis statement in just the right way, you will know where you're going with your essay. It's kind of cool. So this week's workshop, we're going to talk a lot about that. And also about paragraph development. The tier paragraph or pi paragraph structure, you'll read all about, but it has to do with how we organize our paragraphs. You're practicing that with the they say, I say to a great degree, but this just breaks it down a little more scientifically. The notion being that every paragraph has a topic sentence, which is the main idea of that paragraph. It's like a thesis, followed by evidence, which is evidence from your source. It could be a paraphrase, it could be a quote, it could be a brief summary, it could be an observation. And then analysis, which is you responding to that. It could be what you say in response to what they say as the evidence, right? They present evidence, you respond with, and that means, so that's interesting because, and then so on, response. And then reflect and move on. So the tier is the structure of a basic single-sourced paragraph. As we get more sophisticated, we're going to be looking at how to integrate more than one type of source material in our paragraphs for a synthesis paragraph. And then we get really fancy. Pi is the same thing as tier. Some people use pi instead of tier. Pi is point instead of topic sentence, same thing. Illustration or illustration also meaning evidence. It means illustrating the point with evidence. And then explanation. Point, illustration, explanation. Same thing as tier, but every paragraph should have at least those elements. So you're going to be looking at paragraph development this week and thesis development, as well as understanding what a research report is. So please take a look at all this stuff. And you also have a quiz on subject-verb agreement. And so here's a video and here's a little chapter about that. It'll help you out. Okay. Here is your second they say, I say assignment. This is the one that you use where you use a library source. It's the same thing. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to have the annotated source. So you can use Scribble, Google Docs, or MS Word. To annotate the source, please include the craft criteria in the marginal notes and let me know which passages you're going to quote, paraphrase, or summarize in your marginal notes. You can also, and this is really useful to you, respond, practice the they say, I say in your comments. So you find a little passage and go, ooh, that's interesting. I think I'll quote that. But what makes me think of is, and then respond in your marginal notes. And then you're having this actual dialogue with the source. You can also practice highlighting in different colors. For example, if this part of the source addresses one of your sub-questions, and this part of the source addresses a different sub-question, you might choose different highlighting colors to help you stay organized so that when you come back to your source, you can say, what did that source say about X? And you can go right to it. You can go right to what you want to reference. That I'll explain in greater detail and probably with more clarity in our workshops. Remember that you have the model, the assignment, and the sample, student sample here, so you can reference that as well. Alrighty. Here's an overview of the research report. Please read this. This is important. We're going to be talking about what is a report. It's different than a narrative in that you are not talking about yourself. You're reporting information for a readership. You're using a more academic voice. It's not so personal. It doesn't require as much vivid detail. What we're using instead is a neutral third-person voice, and we are using academic style of citation, obviously. Now here is the prompt. Here is a link to the Hall of Fame, so you can look at how others have approached that process. Here is a slide presentation that I will go over with you in our workshop, and this might be your best friend. Here's an outline that'll help you walk through the steps of building your own report. And here is another student sample report. There are a couple that I've posted this week, but again, there are more in the Hall of Fame, so I encourage you to take a look at those. And this slide presentation will walk you through the very structuring. But here is the prompt itself. It's going to open any second now. Any second. Here we go. Here we go. Come on, come on, come on. Open. Okay. All right. Make this big. All right. As we know, the purpose of a report is to inform. And you're answering the big question. After researching my chosen community issue, what do I want others to understand about it? And you're going to do all the steps of generating ideas, developing a research plan, using library research skills, and we're going to be working on getting that thesis going and getting those paragraphs rolling. We're going to be talking about this week. This week we're going to hook our readers and wrap up main ideas and conclusions. We're going to have a draft of our essay ready for week 12. This is week 10. So the work you're doing in your they say, I says is in support of the actual essay itself. We're going to be using MLA style, as you know. It should be a minimum of 4 typed pages plus a works cited page. That means 5 pages total. The works cited page is its separate little beast. I'll explain that too. You're going to need at least 4 sources. You're going to need 2 academic articles from the library databases. So yes, you do have to find more than one source. And you know who's going to help you with that? Tiffany. Don't forget, you get 10 points for working with Tiffany, and she can help you out. If you haven't already found 2 good sources, she can help you. You can also use 2 sources that you can find through popular searches like interviews, articles, books, websites, TED Talks, podcasts, and so on. And if you'd like to, you can perform a personal interview where you interview someone in your community, an expert in the area, and talk to them. So if you know somebody, for example, who has done rehab with stroke victims, you can talk to that person. If you know somebody who has, I'm thinking of topics that I know you guys are writing about, if you know a coach who has helped underconfident players get into the game, you can interview that person. You know what I'm saying? There are ways in which you can incorporate primary research with scholarly research and popular research. There are different ways of gathering information, and you can try them all out, which is cool, but we need 2 from the library. Things that do not count as sources: dictionaries, Wikipedia, the Bible, and that kind of stuff. No, they're not sources. They can be places for you to start, but they are not sources to be used. You may use visuals if you want to. By that I mean you can have a photograph, you can embed images from websites or whatever, but if you do that, be sure you cite them. And the OER has a template for the ways to cite visual images in text and in the works cited page. If you need to include those things, you're welcome to. You're going to use the modern language style. We may need to make sure that we have avoided plagiarism, so double check to make sure you quote appropriately and paraphrase appropriately. And this is worth 200 points. Yes, it is. This is the overview of the kinds of things I'm going to be looking for. I'll give you a more specific rubric a little later, but you can take a look at that. Keep that handy. Apologies. Again, you've got a slideshow presentation here and an outline template that'll help you out with structuring your report. This is a scavenger hunt. You're going to download the sample report by Susie Suncat. And here's your scavenger hunt. It will walk you through the things you're looking for. It'll help you to know what you're looking for if you read the chapters, so you know what does a thesis statement look like? What does a topic sentence look like? What does an in-text citation look like? And locate those items, annotate the source, and upload all this good stuff. So follow the directions. It should be self-explanatory. If it's not, let me know. And here's a little bit about the interview. I'll just give you a quick touchstone thing to consider. There are two ways to ask questions in an interview. One is closed-ended and one is open-ended. A closed-ended question might be, what is your name and how do you spell it? There's only one answer, or there should be, right? What is the name you prefer to go by maybe is a better way to ask that question. What is the title? What is your title at work? How do you spell that? Where did you go to school? What is your degree in? Those things have one answer. But open-ended questions elicit a story, and you want something like that for a good interview. You would like to get something that the person can kind of go off on, and then you can glean from that what might be useful. You can then find follow-up questions in the storytelling. For example, if you were to interview somebody about becoming an anesthetologist in a hospital setting, you could ask a question like, what is the most difficult thing you had to learn on the job? You're going to get a story. What's the weirdest thing that's ever happened on the job? Oh, you'll get a story. What do you find most rewarding about your work? What do you find most difficult about your work? What do you wish people going into the field knew about this work? You would find that they would respond with stories, with some interesting bits and then you might find that you need to ask follow-up questions. So they tell you about the weirdest thing that happened on the job, and you say, hold on. How did that happen? You'll have reason to ask additional questions. Keep track of the responses. You get with that person's permission. You may record the conversation only with their permission. You can record it on your phone. You can record using Zoom or other means if you're doing a face-to-face interview over the internet. You can use an email template. You can ask those questions in an email and have them respond in an email. You can do it by phone. There are many ways in which you can perform a personal interview if you so desire. You are not required to do a personal interview for this particular assignment, but it is always a great idea to do primary research, and it's one of your options for two of your popular sources. Again, two have to come from the library databases, but two can come from Google search, as long as it passes the CRAP test, a TED Talk, podcast, etc. Again, everything should pass the CRAP test. But a personal interview with an expert in your area or a community member could be really useful. All right. Subject-verb agreement. Subject of a sentence is the person, place, or thing doing a thing. Verb is what goes with that. So, I are an English teacher. That doesn't work, right? I am an English teacher. Students read its books. Students read, I'm sorry, that was a pronoun agreement. Students read their books. Let's see. Students enjoy studying for their exams. That works, right? Students enjoys studying for their exams. That doesn't work, right? So what works? And it's important to kind of break it down to notice what is the subject and what is the action that goes with that subject. And sometimes the action is separated from the subject in a sentence. So you have to figure out what goes with what in order to make sure that the subject and the verb agree. So there is some groovy material that you'll see when you log in, but also look at the readings and resources page for the video and the readings that go with the quiz. It's only 5 questions. You can take it as many times as you like, but it's important to get your verbs and your subjects to agree. This is extra credit for, I was going to make this as a journal entry, and it is a journal entry, but you have a lot going on this week, so you can use this to help you launch into structuring your essay. I think it could be very useful to you. You can get 5 points extra credit if you decide to do it. There's a little model for you that will help guide you. Again, this is in service of your larger work. It might give you some ground, some grounding, I should say, in the process of structuring your essay. Alrighty, and so that, I believe, is the work we're doing this week. So you're going to complete your they say, I say. You're going to identify parts of an essay in the scavenger hunt. You're going to take your subject-verb agreement quiz. And you're doing some foundational reading that is going to shape and help you with your essay. Next week, we'll start putting the pieces together, and we're going to work on creating a synthesis paragraph that will appear in your essay as well. So come join me this week in our weekly workshop, and I look forward to working with you.